Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome back to another week of learning of Tehillim. And I was thinking that about 7 years ago when we began this year, it was just called Tehillim. We got together, we should learn the words of Dovid HaMelech to inspire us and to help change our perspective on life and struggles and challenges and growing and getting closer to Hashem. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, COVID hit, and we changed the title of this year to CHIZUK in Tehillim. That the Tehillim should give us the chizuk, should give us the strength to really, in those dark times, and everybody was locked up in their homes and far away from all their family and their friends and everything, it should give us the strength to be able to get through everything. And at a certain point, Baruch Hashem, when all that cleared up, I thought I'll change the name back just to regular Tehillim. And then something else happened. There was drama that took place in Eretz Yisrael and things going on around the world, and we left it CHIZUK in Tehillim. And then I thought to change it again, and then October 7th happened. And every time that I think that we're getting closer, just calling it Tehillim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu surprises all of us and turns the world on its head in just a few hours, and everything changes once again. And now we find ourselves with Eretz Yisrael not on the brink of war, but literally in a war. There's actually a war that is taking place between Iran and Eretz Yisrael. And it's not as simple as it was in the past, where they just go in and they bomb everything and they get rid of the enemy. The enemy now is fighting back, Rahman al-Islam. And they're sending ballistic missiles, and those missiles hit some of their targets. B'chazdei Hashem, most of them have not landed. Most of them are destroyed mid-air before they end up landing in Eretz Yisrael. And even those that landed, many landed in places that were unpopulated and nobody got hurt. But there have been casualties. And there have been people that were killed. And there are people that are injured severely. And there are people that are still missing. And there is devastation that is going on. There's a real war that is taking place right now in Eretz Yisrael. And so our Tehillim is extremely crucial during this time in history. It's crucial for the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. It's crucial for the protection of our fellow Jews. And it's really crucial for ourselves as well. Because as we know that based on the way in which we perceive the tragedies that are going on around us, and based on the way that we respond to the situation that Klal Yisrael is in, therein lies our own personal fortitude and our strength and our Emunah, and therein lies the contribution that we can give to Klal Yisrael by doing our avodah, our work, our part, in trying to fight the battles of the Jewish people. Some will be on the front lines in the army, some will be in the intelligence, where they're sending missiles and they're catching all the enemies, red-handed and killing them like in this precise way that the Mossad is doing it. And others of us will be sitting in Los Angeles, California, wherever we might be in the world, and we'll pick up a Sefer Tehillim, and we'll say with a little extra kavanah, a little extra intention from the words and what they mean, and we'll try to understand so that our tefillahs will go into the Shemaim, into the heavens, and bring about a shmir of protection for Klal Yisrael. So it's extremely fitting that we should be together today to learn the words of Tehillim. We should try to grab on to the oldest prayers in the world that have been written down by Dovid HaMelech and the other authors of Tehillim, and use these to be a beacon of light for Klal Yisrael, wherever they might be in the world, but certainly for our brothers and our sisters in Eretz Yisrael right now who need added protection. So we'll try, Mitzvah Hashem, today to get CHIZUK from Tehillim, should be mechazik us and be mechazik those that are in need. We're starting over here, Pei Beis, number 82, and it's a Tehillim that speaks about, as we're going to go through the introduction over here, Rabbi Fora, which we always do when we read a new Tehillim. It speaks about the affirmation of the Torah judicial system and a forceful condemnation of those who corrupt and falsify Hashem's law. And as we're going to see, that the Gemara tells us that this particular Tehillim, number 82, is every single day after davening we have what's called a Shir Shel Yom, a song, a psalm of that day. And every day has a different Tehillim that we're going to read. The one for the third day of the week, which is Tuesday, is this particular Tehillim, number 82. It's short. It's only 8 psukim long, 8 verses long. Most of the men in shul look forward to this one because it's the shortest one. You get out of shul quicker. But there's a reason why this is the one. And the reason is because on the third day of the week, which is Yom Shlishi, the third day, that was the day in creation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uncovered the earth with His wisdom, and He prepared the world for His chosen assembly. Which means that once that the world is uncovered, remember there were waters on the earth and HaKadosh Baruch Hu removed them and the earth now is revealed, there has to be a certain way in which the world is going to run with mankind and humanity in order for the world to endure in the proper way. And the Mashal, one of the great commentators, says over there in the Gemara the following idea, that the existence of the earth and the universe depends upon the maintenance of equity and justice. And when man disciplined themselves to remain with the strict confines of the law, then Hashem reciprocates midah keneged midah, measure for measure. He keeps the forces of nature within their proper boundaries as well. When we are within our boundaries of justice, when we are within our boundaries of morality, when we are within our boundaries of social normalcy and treating people the way that they deserve to be treated, and there are laws over here, the way that the Mashal explains it in the Gemara is that when the Torah values and laws are what is running the Jewish people properly, and the judges are keeping things in place, so then Hashem says, you do your part to maintain the equity of this universe, I'm going to do my part. You're keeping things normal, you're keeping things under control, you're keeping things balanced. Says Hashem, I'll do the same thing to you. The world will be a very good place. There'll be peace that will reign supreme. People are going to get along with each other. I don't have to bring natural disasters, no tsunamis and no hurricanes and no floods. None of that will have to take place because the world is in a place of beautiful, lawful balance. But says the Mashal, when people begin to disregard the moral values and obligations that they have, and suddenly justice becomes askewed in the world, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He reciprocates midah keneged midah, the way that you are behaving, I'm going to behave, and He will unleash the destructive forces of nature. That's what you will see. You will see that when Klal Yisrael falls out of the balance of this world, so the world itself, which really is just a reflection of the spiritual stability or instability of the Jewish people, and as we shall see, the whole world at large, so then the world itself cannot exist in a way of just regular, basic, normal running. We are out of control, the world will get out of control. We are breaking down the borders of morality and the borders of justice and law. So then Hashem says, so the natural world itself is going to go beyond its boundaries as well. And He brings over here, if you think about it, the Mabul, which was in the days of Noach, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed that there should be a flood that would consume all of the entire universe, that's because the world was boundaryless. Mankind was busy doing all these heinous crimes. Amongst them was theft and robbery, which means that you are breaking down the boundaries of respecting other people's space and their possessions and the like. Says the Mashal, once that the human race began to break down all the boundaries between them and their fellow man, Hashem says, in that case, I'll allow the boundaries of the natural world to be broken down as well, and all of the seas, all the oceans, all of the waters, they ended up going past their boundaries and they filled up the entire earth with the flood waters. Says the Mashal, the way that he's explaining over this particular Tehillim, It's that it's a Tehillim that is teaching us, if you want the world to run in a normal way, if you want the world to be safe and sound, and you don't want there to be wild things going on in the world, so then it must be that we have to behave in a certain way as well, where we're keeping to our plan, to our system, to our boundaries of morality, of justice and law, abiding by what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. But if we don't, says the Gemara, and the way the Mashal is explaining, if we don't, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself says, you know that we always exist in this world, in this relationship of midah keneged midah, measure for measure. You do your job, I'm going to do mine. You behave, I'm going to make sure the world behaves, the natural order of the world will behave. But if you misbehave and you break down the barriers of society in the improper way, then you will see the wrath that is going to come. The world can't exist. The world was built for law and ethics. The world was built to run in a way that is consistent and people are getting along. But when we don't do what we're supposed to do, we have an effect and an impact on the universe. The universe, it morphs and it changes as well. So this is our struggle. And as we'll see as we go through the Mefarshim today, it's not coincidental that we're learning this particular Tehillim, because there are many things that are going on around us that is lawlessness and not the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu in His Torah has declared that we should do things, and so we end up in the world that we are in right now. So the Rav Hirsch writes on this the first pasuk, Mizmor li'osav Elokim nitza ba'adas kel b'kerev Elokim yishpait. Hashem stands in every tribunal of Hashem, of God, and He judges in the midst of the judges. Now, the way that we explain this verse, or the way we explain this Tehillim, is that it seems to be honing in on Klal Yisrael's obligation to uphold the laws of the Torah. That's the simple pshat. That's the way the Gemara seems to be saying. Rav Hirsch says it's very clear from the end of this Tehillim, as we will eventually get there in the last verse, that Asaf, who is the author of this Tehillim, is not only talking about Klal Yisrael's obligation and moral commitment to keeping the laws of the Torah, is that rather justice is supposed to reign supreme throughout the entirety of the world and all of mankind. And if mankind doesn't acknowledge and they don't live up and honor that basic truth of this world, that we are supposed to be a moral, upstanding, and lawful people, so then the world is going to disintegrate and fall apart. And that's what he writes over here. That Asaf is not only concerned with Klal Yisrael, but rather he's pleading the cause of salvation of all of mankind on earth, and the existence and welfare of all which is dependent upon the proper enforcement of justice. If there is no justice, then the world cannot exist. It cannot run properly. If people are not treating each other in the right way, so then it's going to be anarchy and the world is going to begin to fall apart. And he explains over here that there's nothing that reveals Hashem to the straight-thinking man more clearly, that he's the founder and maintainer of human society, than the sense of justice which was ingrained into the spirit and conscience of man at the time of creation. Says Rav Hirsch, every single person is a Tzelem Elokim. Now, Klal Yisrael is a heightened level of Tzelem Elokim, but the truth of the matter is the entire universe, every human being in this world, they have Tzelem Elokim inside of them. What is the neshama? What is the force? What is the soul, the spirit that's in them? Everybody has the spirit of God. Now, Kodesh Baruch Hu himself is the master of justice. He's the master of morality. He's the master of things being kept at bay so that the world runs in the proper way. Now, if that's ingrained inside the moral conscience of every single human being, and therefore when a person gets in tune with that, they begin to realize there must be a creator of this world, And He created us in such a way that society runs natural, normal, balanced, disciplined, committed, with people taking responsibility. That's the way the world is supposed to run. And therefore that becomes a way in which Hashem's, His greatness is revealed to the world. However, and therefore the judges that are acting in whatever society that they're in, their mission is, don't become corrupt. Rather, you must run the world, you must make decisions and cases and judgments with great sense of responsibility, of justice, of law, of morality, of keeping things in check. That's the goal of a judge. And if the judges themselves become in a world of lawlessness, and they themselves no longer represent what justice is all about, of course you begin to understand when it goes from the top, then it only starts to follow and trickle down. The whole world becomes a place of injustice. And then you have people running around doing wild things that are completely against what democracy would dictate is going to be, completely against what judgment says it's supposed to be. And therefore you have human beings that are at odds with each other, killing each other, looting each other. You know, we're living here in Los Angeles, so they have the peaceful riots. Peaceful riots. They're blowing up cars, lighting them on fire, beating up officers and looting and breaking into stores that don't belong to them and taking hundreds of thousands of dollars of merchandise. And people that are working in downtown have to, you know, put wood on their stores and lock up their stores because they're afraid. But those are peaceful riots. And then the media and the judicial says it's peaceful. What do you mean it's peaceful? Well, it's mostly peaceful. Well, mostly peaceful is not peaceful, actually. Even if there's only 10% of the crowd that is being violent, that means that you are not peaceful. And if you're not stopping it, and then if you argue when we try to stop it that you're committing a crime, so then something is not right in the justice system. Again, we're not political over here, we're not getting into it. Just pointing out that whenever there's a breakdown of justice, which is what Rav Hirsch is saying over here, that's the destruction of the society. So yeah, of course in Torah and in mitzvahs and in Klal Yisrael's world, yes, that's going to be very severe. But mankind in general cannot exist without justice, because Hashem put into the moral fiber and the DNA of every human being this Tselem Elokim, this godliness. Godliness is justice. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Midas Hadin. He runs the world according to justice, the way that it's supposed to be. Yes, He has Rachamim, He has mercy and compassion, but that mercy and compassion means that a person that does the wrong thing is always given a chance to rectify their mistake. That's what Rachamim means. Rachamim means that even though that Midas Hadin, the attribute of justice, tells me that I really should bring you a consequence right now because you just stepped out of line and you rebelled against the King of the universe, but Rachamim means, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance to make a change. I'll give you a chance to recognize the error of your ways. I'll give you a chance to do tshuva. I'll give you a chance to feel bad and regret what you've done, and then, you know what, I don't have to bring the Midas Hadin, the attribute of judgment, upon you. Rachamim doesn't mean I let you get away with bloody murder. That's not Rachamim. Unfortunately, this past week, they passed a bill in New York. I believe that euthanasia is permissible. It is now permissible. Euthanasia is one of the greatest contradictions and hypocrisies in the world. Euthanasia, mercy, killing. How do you kill somebody with mercy? If you kill somebody, you're actually killing them, you're taking their life. That's not called merciful. So the world has convinced itself that you can take the work of God into your own hands, and you can take someone who tells you, I don't want to live anymore, and you could kill them in cold-blooded murder, but you did it in a nice way, and that's called mercy killing. No, that's called killing. You're a murderer. The Gemara says in Shabbos that if a person is lying on their deathbed and it appears to be that their spirit of life has left them, and you close their eyes, and by closing their eyes, that like one little last breath of air, of life that was in them, leaves their chest area, you might be considered to be a murderer because you took away an ounce and a second of life. So there's no such thing as mercy killing. It doesn't work like that. Says Rav Hirsch, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is demanding of Klal Yisrael that we should keep the laws of Torah properly. Yes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also demanding that the world lives a life of justice. And if society is not living in justice, then what is going to happen, unfortunately? There's going to be a disintegration of the world. Now, the Mashal said what's going to happen is that there'll be natural disasters and the like that are going to come all around you. And we've seen enough natural disasters in the world in the last 6 months that people can't even imagine. There's flooding going on now in San Antonio, I believe. And people are missing, and they just found the last person. People have drowned. And there are earthquakes, and there's fires, and all these crazy things. Why does all that happen? So it was, global warming, climate control. No, that's not what it is. Says the Tehillim over here, when the people are out of order, when the people are gone beyond their boundaries and their limits of morality and obligation, and a sense of duty to this world, to maintaining law and order and respectability between one and the other. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you have gone beyond your boundaries, so then the world, which is hinging on justice, is going to end up going beyond its boundaries as well. And you'll see bizarre things that you've never seen before. You'll see floods in areas never flooding. You'll see fires leaping over the mountains in Los Angeles that you never saw before. You'll hear about earthquakes in several different places. You'll see unusual plane crashes and the like in hell. Where's all this coming from? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it all has to do with our actions. When the world is out of order, when mankind is out of order, then the world will be out of order as well, unfortunately. Says the pasuk further, until when will you enforce violence in your judgment and respect the persons of lawless? Says Rav Hirsch that the function of a judge is to enforce justice in the world. That's what a judge is here for. They set the order which maintains the relationships in human society. However, Hashem says, Tishbatu Avel, you are enforcing violence by not keeping things in the right way. You are enforcing violence, and if you're enforcing violence, so then what do you expect from the world? Now, again, we're living in a very dangerous time, because if you look at the judiciary system across the world, everywhere that you look, there is so much falsehood and deceit and lack of justice that is going on everywhere that you look. So it should be no surprise to us that the world in so many different places is breaking down the way that it is. Says the pasuk, Shiftu Davi Yosem Ani V'Rashat Tztiku. You also help those that have been brought low, the orphan to obtain the rightful due, and you proclaim the right of those without station and wealth. And then number 4, Paltu Davi Evyoin Miyad Rishoim Hatzilu. You've been brought. You rescue the one that was brought low and defenseless, save them from the hands of lawlessness. Says Rav Hirsch over here, what is the duty of a judge? The duty of a judge is to run the world with fairness and run the world in the proper way. And although we're not allowed to show, a judge cannot show favorites, he cannot show favorites. And he cannot be bribed, and he cannot have compassion in a place where compassion cannot be. He's not allowed to do that. So what does a judge do? So a judge, though, is obligated to make sure that those that cannot defend themselves should be defended. A judge's obligation is to make sure that someone that is weak and someone that has no one to go to bat for them, someone that cannot take care of themselves, the judge is obligated in a sense of law and order to make sure that this person is not being taken advantage of and not being walked all over. And those are The ani, the poor, the destitute, what does he has money to pay for a lawyer? No, he doesn't. So he comes in the court and he's defending himself. A judge is obligated to listen carefully to make sure that he's not being taken advantage of. A yasam, an orphan boy or girl who doesn't have the parents to stand behind them and defend them. So the judge has an obligation, again, not to show favoritism, and not to be weak in the judgment, but to make sure that there is law and order that is residing over here so that this poor yasam, this orphan, is taken care of in the right way. And so too, the evyoin, the destitute, the defenseless, all of them, the judge has an obligation to make sure that he's taking care of them properly. So if you find a judge who takes his role seriously, then you will find a judge that with the judgment that he has to do, there is a great sense and urgency of compassion, of understanding, of caring, to make sure that whoever is standing in front of him is getting a judgment that is proper and that is appropriate. And if not, says Rav Hirsch over here, then that's not the kind of a judge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And then, once again, you have people that are down on the lowdown over here. They're destitute, they have struggles, they have issues, they have no help. Says the Rebbeinu Shalom, if you're not going to go and help them, so then you now are losing the compassion and the rachamim and the mercy in this world. You're going to see, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my mercy, my compassion is going to be distant from this world as well, Rahman al-Islam. We go on further. Lo yadu v'lo yavinu b'chashecha. They've never known, nor will they understand, that b'chashecha yishalachu, they're walking in darkness, yimaitu kol moisei aretz, and therefore all of the pillars of the earth will totter, they will shake. Says the Malbim on these words over here, the following idea. B'chashecha yishalachu. They are walking in darkness. Mitzaynis ha-mishpat shu'or ha'olam. You have to understand, he writes, mishpat, justice, is the light of the world. It is like the foundations of humanity. Like we said in the beginning. You need to have justice in order for the world to be able to exist properly. And he goes on. And when justice is missing and lacking, everybody's walking in darkness, and the ones that the most are the judges over here. And the whole world itself is tottering. But what does that mean? Mishpat, justice, it strengthens humanity and mankind in two particular ways. Number one, mitzad gamul elokei shim ein din lamata yimna oroi v'ashbasa milamala. Like we said before, it works mida keneged mida, measure for measure. If there's no light of justice down here in this world, and so then it has a hashbah, has an influence above, and then b'chashecha yishalachu, the world itself is going to go in darkness. If we don't have the light of justice, which means we're not treating people in the right way, we're not running governments in the right way, we're not having cases in courts being decided in the right way, so that means there's a darkness down here in this world. That means it takes away from the light above in Shemaim, so to speak, and that means that the whole world is just cast into like this oblivion of darkness, just going through the motions, groping around in the dark, trying to figure out what's going on in this world. That's one thing. And number two, mitzad hateva, the nature of the world is shas ish esvei chayim bolu. And he quotes the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, and that is like this. Ilmoli, if we would not fear authority, if we would not have an awe or a reverence of police officers, of national guards, of judges that have power, of government officials, presidents, kings, and the like, so then what would end up being? Ish Esrei Chaim Balu, people would literally swallow each other up. That's the world that we'll live in. You live in a world where there's no justice. Even the people that represent power, the people that represent law and order, they are defamed and they are disgraced and their cars are torched and they are being screamed and yelled at and being beaten. How can you have such a thing? If the police officers are being beaten and they are being told, you don't have a right to go and put this person in jail, even if they're breaking the law, so then what's going to be? Chaim Balu, people will swallow each other alive. It doesn't mean they're going to, Balu means to swallow. A fish, like a big fish, swallows up a small fish, swallows it alive. We'll just swallow people up. And then it's impossible for the human world, existence as we know it, to exist. And that's what it means. All of the pillars of the earth will begin to totter. What does that mean? The world is going to be shaking out of control. So that's what we see with our own eyes. There's never been, I think you're all a little bit older than I am, so you've seen the world and you've come from countries that were teetering out of control for a long time. If you look at every corner of the universe today, there's not a single country, there's not a single nation where it's not teetering, where it's not shaking, where things don't make any sense, where there's not wars, where there's not tragedies, where there's not natural disasters, where nobody knows what's going to be tomorrow. Nobody knows. For the first time in history, there's no flights to Eretz Yisrael right now. No flights. People are stuck in America. People are stuck in Eretz Yisrael. People are stuck in Cyprus. They're stuck in Rome. They can't go anyplace. The world's teetering out of control. But that's not only Eretz Yisrael. That's you can go to Russia. You can go to England. You can go to Europe. You can go to South Africa. You can go anywhere in the world. You go to America. The world's teetering out of control. Now, why is that? He says very simple. Because Hashem is morality, and Hashem is just and justice, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world with midas hadin. There has to be a level of judgment that is in the world to keep things running normally, and the only way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do that is if we are behaving like Hashem, that Tzelem Elokim that's inside of us, which is ingrained with a moral compass, which is enmeshed, embedded with understanding of what life is all about, how to live properly between man and his fellow man. But if we're not doing that, says the Malbim over here, if we're not treating people in the right way, if we're not living a life that is adhering to the laws of justice and morality and the like, so then what ends up happening? So then we go in darkness. When we go in darkness down here, it creates an effect in Shemaim. The light of the world ends up darkening as well. Wherever the whole place is in darkness, and then the pillars of the world, everything is just teetering. It's just shaking. And the world looks the way that it does right now. And nobody can understand. And if you speak to people that are 60, 70, 80 and older, they'll tell you they never imagined that the world could look the way that it looks right now. So what's going to be? What's going to be? What's going to be? I don't know what's going to be. We can only really be concerned and worry about ourselves. The world is so much moving in a certain direction of danger. It's not going to turn back. You're not going to turn back America on its heels. You're not going to turn back Europe on its heels. You're not going to turn back South Africa. It's just going and just going. But at least ourselves, we have to work for ourselves to maintain as much morality and justice and altruism and being dedicated to the word of Hashem that we possibly can. And make sure that in our own lives, our human relations, our social relations, the way that we run our lives, conduct our lives, and the people around us, we're doing things the way that Hashem wants us to do it. How can we trust the rest of the world? I don't think so. Can we trust ourselves? Hopefully. How do we do that? Maintain the dignity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to maintain. And that's it. And if every one of us would just take upon ourselves to be more careful in these ways and to maintain lawfulness and not lawlessness and do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do, so then we create light down here in our lives, around the lives of the people that we're influencing the most, and it begins to send or light in the Shemaim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu then he can bring down mercy. He can bring down chesed. He can bring down salvation, Yeshuas, and the like. Every Jew that's in Eretz Yisrael right now, you see how, because it's amazing. There's all these ballistic missiles that fly. 6 made it through the other day. And one hit in a huge neighborhood, hit one building. HaKadosh Baruch Hu it's so frightening, he has an address. For every missile has its address. Every person that was in that particular building, either that lost their lives or are injured right now, or it affected so many other people as a result, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew exactly where that missile is going to fall. Hashem knows. And that means that every single Jew in Eretz Yisrael needs protection right now. Because if Chalila, more missiles are going to fly, and they're going to go, and they're going to land in different places, God forbid, every Jew needs protection. How do we do that? Says Tehillim, this is what we do. Let's up our game in the world of living a life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be proud of. Let's live our lives according to justice, morality, humanity, dealing in social scenes the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to. And in that way, we are now living a life the way that Hashem had carved out for mankind to be in this world. Because if not, what ends up happening? Says Hashem, you're going beyond your boundaries of what Tzelem Elokim is supposed to be. You're going beyond your boundaries. And you cross the line of what mankind is supposed to do in their lives. When you cross the line, then the world is going to cross the line as well. If the whole world is running based upon your actions, so that when your actions are no longer commensurate with the proper way to live, so then the world is teetering on all of its pillars. And that's what we're seeing all around us. The world it's out of control. I'm not the oldest man in the world. Nobody ever dreamed of seeing the world like this before. Nobody ever dreamed of seeing what we're seeing going on all around us in the way that it is. It's literally chaos and out of control. And the only way to turn back the tides is if we're going to behave in the way that we are supposed to. Now, says I'm gonna skip over here to the last pasuk. No, the last two. I guess the last few. I thought that you were gods and all of you sons of the Most High. I thought the judges were like high, lofty people that I could trust. But you're going to die like all men. You'll fall like everybody else. Therefore, Hashem, you rise up. Shav ta'aretz, you should judge the earth. Ki ata sincha b'chol hagoyim, because you desire the inheritance amongst all of the nations. Says Rav Hirsch on this, that without the foundation of justice, human society, it doesn't mean only the Jews, human society, that means the whole world, will perish without ever having reached the path that would have led them to a level sanctified to Hashem. The whole world could end up sanctifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. The whole world could live a life of godliness. Of course, Klal Yisrael is going to be the real Kiddush Hashem, the ones that are going to bring Hashem's out, but the whole world could live a life. We recognize we're the children. Everyone is a creation of God. And if the world doesn't, then you can just turn on the news and you'll see what's going on. That's exactly what's happening. And therefore says the Tehillim over here, Rav Hirsch, the way he's explaining, we have to so much try our best to be able to live that life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to live, to adhere to the justice, of course, of the Torah. And even we have a halacha, and the Gemara tells us, Dini de Malchus Dina. Dina de Malchus Dina means that you must live by the law of the land. If the speed limit is 65 miles per hour, so then you have to drive whatever is considered normal. If 5 miles over the speed limit is what's normal, then that you can drive by. If it's 10 miles in that particular area, you're not going to get a ticket for going 75. Drive 75. But if you drive the streets today, you're like in some like racing game in the arcades. Everybody's like speeding 100 miles per hour down the street, zipping in and out of cars, and the motorcycles like they own the road. And if you try to like move over to the side. They honk at you and they'll make faces at you when they drive by. I mean, I'm just trying to follow. This is not a video game over here. But we're living in a world right now where everyone's in a video game. Everyone's in virtual reality. Everybody's just in another planet. Says Rav Hirsch over here, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world to live. There's rules. Everyone's supposed to abide by the rules. If 20% of the people on the road are driving like maniacs, that means they're putting the other 80% in threats. When there's a crash on the road, is it because the people that were crashed, chas v'chalila, they weren't paying attention? No, maybe it means that one guy was zipping in and out like this, and he threw a person off, and they ended up crashing, God forbid. So we have to live accordingly to the right way, in the right way, appropriate ways, according to the laws, and so on and so on. And if we don't, says the Tehillim over here, so that the world's just going to keep tottering. It's going to keep bouncing over on different ways. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich on these words over here. Takes a different element, something for us to think about. And he says like this. Dovid HaMelech said to his son Shlomo the following words. This is from Divrei Yomim. V'ata Shlomo b'ni, my son Shlomo. Das Elokei Avicha ve'avdu. You should know Elokei Avicha, the God of your father, ve'avdu, and you should serve him. Know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you should serve him. V'hainu tzivoi soy sheyasek b'yediyas Hashem. You see that Dovid HaMelech was commanding his son Shlomo the following: you must know who the Ribbono Shel Olam is. V'yachor begadusai, you have to go to investigate his greatness. V'romemusa, and his loftiness. Yisbarach u'besoif ha'pasuk now, and at the end of that verse it says, "In tidrashenu, if you will search Hashem, out for Hashem, yimsa lecha, you will find Him. V'im tazvenu, but if you leave the search of Hashem, yaznichechu la'ad, He will leave you, He will abandon you forever." If you're a person that is seeking and searching and looking for Hashem in your life, guess what? You're going to find Him. He's all over the place. His fingerprint is everywhere in the creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, although that He conceals Himself in the exiles that we are in, but He's so excited when there's another Jew that's looking for Him, He's going to reveal Himself. You'll find Him wherever you go. Avraham Avinu, as we know, he was one out of the entire universe that searched for Hashem. It took him a very, very long time, but he found Him. Hashem says, "Here I am." And He appeared to Avraham Avinu. Once that Avraham put all the tools into our Torah, into our world, how to find Hashem, we all know how to find Hashem. He's right here. And if you search for Him, says Dovid HaMelech, you're going to find Him. If you abandon the search, so then, Yaznichecha la'ad, you will abandon Him and He will abandon you forever. We learn a very important thing. A person must be engaged in the knowledge and finding the Ribbono Shel Olam. And when you live your life accordingly, you will be zeicha to get close to Hashem. But when you don't spend time, the proper amount of time seeking Hashem, searching Hashem, trying to understand Hashem and know Him better, you will then fall down from whatever madrega, whatever level of ruchnius you are on. And he says, maybe that's what our pasuk over here is telling us. Lo yeidu v'lo yavinu, you did not know and you do not understand. If a person doesn't put it into their heart and make an effort to try to know Hashem, Yiskayimba, what's going to happen? You're going to go in darkness. You'll go in darkness in this world. And at the end, what do you come to? All of the pillars of this world will be teetering. All of the pillars will be shaking. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that the world itself will be shaking. What it means is, whatever madrega, whatever level you were on in your own ruchnius, your own relation to Hashem, it will begin to fall from that level. Like it says in the Midrash, Shadam Nikra Olam Katan, man is called a miniature world. Even those that are lofty and elevated, they also can end up going down as a result. Elohim, God and the lofty ones. Those people that are more elevated over the rest of the nation. But if they don't spend time looking for Hashem, seeking Hashem, finding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then, even though they're on lofty levels, at the end, they will also disappear. They will end up falling as well. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich, it doesn't matter who you are. You can be the lowest in the world. You have to seek Hashem. And even if you're a lofty, you're a tzaddik, you're a tzaddikis, you spent your life serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if you want to maintain those madrigas, you want to keep growing in the direction you are, you have to be someone that spends their life looking for the Ribbono Shel Olam. Because only when you know Hashem, this is the way that the Rambam explains, only when you know Hashem can you believe in Hashem. And when you live in a world that is literally spinning out of control and teetering on all sides, if your emunah is not strong during this period in history, you're going to have a really hard time waking up every day. You're going to have a hard time looking at the news. You're going to have a hard time understanding what's going on. You're going to have a hard time believing that Hashem really loves Klal Yisrael so much. You have a really hard time. But one of the Gedolei Hador of Dov Lando, he put out a statement to be mechazik people during this war that's going on. He says, you should know Hashem loves us. Hashem loves Klal Yisrael. He's on our side. He wants what is best. Don't forget that. You could look at the missiles flying overhead, and this one hits over here, and this one hits over here. Does Hashem really? He does. He loves us. But He loves us even more when we show that we love Him. And when we show our commitment, our dedication, our belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're working on our morality and our dedication and our justice and keeping things in the right way, living life the way that Hashem decreed for us to live life, so Hashem even loves us more and more and more. And this is our personal mission now during this time. It's very unknown what is going to be. Iran is very unpredictable. We don't know anything. Probably you know that better than anybody else. You know how unpredictable they can be. And they've got an arsenal of weapons and everything. And it's very scary what they have. And that's why Eretz Yisrael has been trying their best to destroy the nuclear weapons and the launch pads and the missiles, because they're unpredictable. So we don't know. So since it's unknown, we have to, like you're saying, we have to make it known. We have to make Hashem known to us. And the more that we look for Hashem, and the more that we seek Hashem, and the more that we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the deeper is going to become our emunah. The deeper your emunah is, the more powerful your prayer is going to be, because you believe that you're talking to Hashem. You believe that a little Jewish lady in Tarzana, California, can open her mouth in prayer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, please Hashem, protect the Jews in Israel. And guess what? He's listening to everything that you say. Everything that you say. And as you are davening here in LA time, and there's a ballistic missile flying over at Israel time, and you said, please Hashem, protect the Jews in Israel, your prayer travels across the universe in the blink of a second. It's stronger than an Iron Dome, it's stronger than David's arrow, whatever they call it, and it goes and it catches the missile and it explodes in midair, and the people that were on the ground that could have been hurt, they're all saved because of your tefillah. But that's only if you believe that's the way the prayer works. It's only if you believe in Hashem and you believe that He's listening to you, and He is listening to you because He's here. And every time that there is a hard times in Klal Yisrael, it's always to be mechazik ourselves in our emunah, our bitachon, and getting closer and closer to Hashem. And this is what we need to work on right now. And if, in fact, we're going to work on this, then we will see an end to the war. We'll see an end to the destruction. We'll see salvations for Klal Yisrael. And the world, it's very unknown right now what's going to happen. And we don't know how the world is going to view the Jews. We're already not so beloved in the eyes of the world. But if, God forbid, a World War III is going to erupt from this whole thing, we want to give any. But if, God forbid, something terrible is going to happen right now, and America's getting involved, then Russia's going to... Whose fault is it? Who's the world going to blame? So we have a lot to daven for. A lot. We have a lot to pour out our hearts to Hashem. We have a lot to build our emunah and our faith and our justice and our morality and keep the world running the way that it should. And remember, when you add light to your life, you add light to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. And when you bring down that light, Hashem brings protection. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu protect all of our brothers and our sisters in Eretz Yisrael. May He allow the IDF to continue bringing about all of their operations and destroy everything they possibly can destroy. May we not have a bad favor, in a bad look in the eyes of the world. May they recognize that the Jewish people are just trying to save mankind at this point. And may HaKadosh Baruch Hu continue to shine His grace and His countenance on us. Not that we should be going in the dark, and not that the world should be teetering, chas v'chalida, but rather that we should get stronger in our emunah, stronger in our bitachon, stronger in what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of us in the world of Torah and of mitzvahs and in midos and morality and justice. And in that way, that will activate the rachamim, the mercy that Hashem has in Shemaim. He'll bring down His compassion, He'll bring down His mercy, He'll bring down His rachamim upon all of us, Klal Yisrael, throughout the world. And in that schus we'll be protected, we will be safe, and Hashem will bring the ultimate Yeshua that all of Klal Yisrael is waiting for thousands of years already, and that is the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheira b'yameinu.